In my last video, I spoke about the mineral zinc, and I mentioned that it's very important for muscle, for anyone who's involved in working out or is involved in muscle metabolism, does a lot of important things. It's involved in hormones, release, that type of thing. So now, today, I'm going to talk about another mineral. This one is magnesium. I think it's important to discuss because some surveys show that as many as 80% of Americans might not even be getting the minimal amount of magnesium required to maintain health. Now, magnesium it's an essential mineral. It's the fourth most abundant substance or element in the human body. It's just behind sodium, potassium, and calcium. About half of the magnesium in the body is stored in bone. 50 to 60% is stored in bone. The rest of it is it's stored in muscle and soft tissue. If you want to get your magnesium from foods, good natural sources include pumpkin seeds, nuts, whole grains, and legumes or beans. Kelp, by the way, kelp. That's an old-time bodybuilding supplement that bodybuilders used it many years ago. Kelp is basically seaweed. It's high in the trace mineral iodine. It was thought to stimulate thyroid activity. Bodybuilders would use it before a contest to get cut up. Actually, too much iodine has a reverse effect. It actually slows thyroid output. But kelp is loaded with minerals and it is high in magnesium. If you take small amounts of kelp, you're okay. You just don't want to go crazy and take 50 tablets a day like I did and many others did back in the 70s. Not a good idea. Another good source of magnesium from a supplemental point of view is something I mentioned in a recent video about old-time supplements. It's stuff called brewer's yeast. Tastes terrible, but it's loaded with B complex vitamins, and it is high in natural magnesium. It's not used very much these days because there's just better supplements, and brewer's yeast just doesn't taste very good. But it's a good natural source of magnesium. That's what you have to keep it. What's the requirement for magnesium? The requirement for magnesium is in men up to 19 years of age, it's 400 milligrams a day. Men over age 19, it's 420 milligrams a day. And in women, it's the requirement for daily requirement for magnesium is 320 milligrams a day. Now, it's important to note, athletes and bodybuilders, anyone engaged in heavy sports activity or working out, you're going to need more magnesium, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. So these guidelines, when I'm talking about 420 milligrams a day for men, that's usually not enough if you're involved in intense exercise or sports activity. And I'll explain why in a couple of minutes, but just keep that in mind. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that about half of the magnesium in the body is found in the bones. So obviously, magnesium is very much involved in maintaining bone mass. And maintaining optimal magnesium levels will prevent stuff like stress fractures, which are small little breaks in the bone that can occur with hard exercise or if you're involved in running. So magnesium will definitely help maintain bone mass. It's also involved in muscular contractions, which right away if you think about it, that's a good reason for bodybuilders to ensure that they get enough magnesium, since it's definitely involved in the muscle contraction process. It's also involved in nerve transmission. Since your muscles are innervated by nerves, obviously magnesium is important for that too. And remember, an interesting fact I should say, magnesium is involved in no less than 80% of all the enzymatic reactions in the body. 80%. It's involved in everything: blood clotting, heart function, heart rhythm maintenance. All of these things involve magnesium. It's extremely important. Among other actions, magnesium is required for anaerobic and aerobic energy production. Magnesium, the most elemental form of energy is called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. All the calories you eat, whether it comes from protein or fat or carbohydrates, eventually they're converted into ATP. That's the immediate source of energy for cells. Now, magnesium stabilizes ATP. So again, very important. Magnesium also works in concert with creatine to help make creatine work better. In fact, there are some forms of supplemental creatine that combine creatine with magnesium, which isn't really that bad, and that's not a bad idea, but it actually doesn't really make the creatine work that much better to justify the cost. I would still stick with plain old vanilla creatine monohydrate instead of the fancier forms of creatine. Now, what else? Animal studies show that magnesium helps maintain blood glucose. It lowers lactate, which causes muscle fatigue when you're working out, or lactic acid specifically, and helps to maintain electrolyte or mineral balance. Magnesium helps to control calcium levels, and it prevents it from being laid down in tissues where it shouldn't be laid down, like in your soft tissues, calcium deposits, that kind of stuff. Magnesium will help prevent that. So if you have any tendency to bone spurs, that kind of stuff, magnesium is very useful. If you keep a optimal balance of magnesium in your blood, you will help control calcium, keep it where it should be in the bones and small amounts circulating in the blood. It works similarly to magnesium, I should say, works similarly to commonly prescribed drugs called calcium channel blockers, which are prescribed by physicians to control hypertension or high blood pressure and certain heart rhythm disturbances. And magnesium is a natural calcium channel blocker, not quite as potent as the drugs, but then again, it doesn't have the side effects of those drugs either. Magnesium also helps to treat PMS, or premenstrual tension syndrome, in women. It helps to treat migraine headaches, and it actually will help prevent kidney stones if combined with vitamin B6, because it prevents the formation of the most common type of kidney stone, which is calcium oxalate stones. Oxalic acid is an element found in a lot of vegetables and foods. Sometimes in certain people, especially when they're dehydrated, it'll kind of combine with calcium. It forms kidney stones. Now, what magnesium and B6 does, it keeps the oxalates soluble, so it doesn't harden up with the calcium and form stones. So if you have any genetic tendency or you've ever had kidney stones, taking magnesium and B6 will probably help prevent the recurrence of kidney stones. Now, diabetics very often lack sufficient magnesium, which is kind of ironic, because magnesium not only increases insulin sensitivity, but it also helps to control blood glucose levels and makes insulin work better. So again, for diabetics, magnesium is very, very important. Magnesium may even prevent, let me backtrack. You guys, I don't know if you know what trans fats are. Trans fats are hydrogenated fats often found in processed foods. They were developed around 1912 to increase stability, because most fats tend to go rancid, and trans fats do not go rancid. They're hydrogenated, but they're very unnatural. Some forms of trans fats are actually good, such as CLA, the famous supplement conjugated linoleic acid. That's a whole different story. But my point being, the trans fats found in processed foods are very bad, and they're closely linked with cardiovascular disease, especially atherosclerosis. It turns out that magnesium, amazingly, can actually prevent trans fats from promoting atherosclerosis. So this is one way that magnesium helps to prevent heart disease. Now, bodybuilders, often before a contest, they might be holding a little extra water, and they'll take pharmaceutical diuretics. Two of the type of diuretics that are often favored are what they call loop diuretics, an example of which is Lasix, and then they have the thiazide diuretics. Those are the two most common. Now, the problem with these diuretics is that they, while they do promote water loss, they also cause the excretion of a number of minerals, including potassium and magnesium. And if you take too many of these diuretics, you can actually cause a lot of the magnesium in your body to be excreted. And this is going to very, very seriously affect your energy levels. And it could be involved in the onset of muscle cramps. So, those who take, if you do resort to using diuretics, you have to be very careful about your potassium magnesium. If you use what they call potassium-sparing diuretics like aldactone, you don't want to take magnesium with it, and you don't want to take potassium with it, because potassium-sparing diuretics, as the name implies, retain minerals, and if you take extra minerals on top of it, you could get serious heart problems. I saw this happen to a pro bodybuilder years ago named Mike Matarazzo, who eventually passed away from heart disease. Before the Arnold show, he took he was told by one of these coaches or bodybuilding gurus to take potassium with his aldactone, And I rode in the bus with him on the way to the Arnold show. It was just me and him in the bus. And I said, Mike, how do you feel? He said, Jerry, I feel like I'm going to die. And he explained to me what he did. And I immediately realized that what he did wrong. I said, Mike, he took a massive amount of potassium supplements when he also took a potassium-sparing diuretic. He could have died. He could have easily have died. He didn't die then. He died a couple of years later. But it shows you what can happen if you listen to the wrong people. A lot of these so-called experts aren't really experts. They don't know their literal ass from their elbow. But that's another story. I'm not going to get into that now. Now, studies of athletes show that many are deficient in magnesium, which definitely lowers athletic performance. Handball players, basketball players, baseball players, they've all checked out their magnesium status, and most of these people aren't even getting the minimal amount of magnesium, that 420 milligrams I mentioned. They're not even getting that. And it's more likely to happen with bodybuilders, because bodybuilders often, before a contest, they might stay on restricted diets for months at a time. And now, if you're not eating those foods I mentioned earlier, like nuts, green leafy vegetables, all that kind of stuff, if you're on a low-carb diet, you're going to cut that stuff out, and you're not going to be getting almost any magnesium in your diet. This is going to make you feel weak and tired, which you're probably going to blame on the low-carb diet. And the low-carb diet is partially the blame, because the low-carb diet also provides a natural diuretic effect by breaking down glycogen, which is stored with 2.7 grams of water per gram of glycogen. You lose a lot of water, but you also sweep minerals out of your body, including magnesium and potassium. So the weakness that's often felt on ketogenic diets and low-carb diets is not from the low carbs, it's from the loss of minerals. If you put those minerals back in the diet by supplementing with magnesium and potassium, you're going to feel 100% better. Trust me on that. Who's at risk for lacking sufficient magnesium or an outright magnesium deficiency? These are the categories that make you at high risk. If you're on a high protein diet, which includes just about every bodybuilder and athlete, you're at a higher risk for magnesium loss, because protein causes a magnesium excretion. Yes, a protein diet will cause your body to kick out magnesium right out of the body. So if you're on a high protein diet, you're gonna have to be very careful of your magnesium intake. Generally speaking, I think that bodybuilders should aim for a daily magnesium intake of 600 to 800 milligrams daily. Now, the higher figure, the more stress you're under, for example, if you're not getting enough sleep, if there's some personal stress in your life, you want to go for the higher figure of 800 milligrams. But there's a caveat to that, which I'll get to in a minute. Well, let me tell you right now, you never want to take massive amounts of magnesium at once, because I'll give an example why. I don't know if you guys ever heard of a product called milk of magnesia. Now, milk of magnesia treats constipation. Now, that should give you a hint of what happens if you overdo your magnesium intake. It'll give you severe diarrhea. I mean, you'll be sitting on a toilet like constantly. So when you take magnesium, you want to take small doses, no more than 300 milligrams at a time. Never take more than 300 milligrams of magnesium at a time. So if you're going to take something like 600 to 800, you want to split up into small doses. And remember one other thing. When it comes to minerals, this is an important point. The smaller the dose you take, the greater the absorption. For example, calcium, the maximum dose of calcium is 500 milligrams. You take any more than that, you're not going to absorb it. Same with magnesium. The more magnesium you take, the greater the chance you're going to just crap it right out. So you want to take a range of between, let's say, anywhere from 200 to 300 milligrams of magnesium maximum. You don't want to take any more than that. And another good thing, the way the human body works, whenever you're low in a mineral, it will actually increase the absorption of that mineral. So let's say you're low on magnesium and you start taking a magnesium supplement or eat magnesium-rich foods, your body will actually absorb extra amounts of magnesium because it senses the need. It's almost like a computer. It's very interesting. Now, if you eat a lot of processed foods, like TV dinners, I don't think this is going to apply to a lot of the people who view this video. I would assume that most of you are smarter than to consume processed junk foods like TV dinners and all that crap. Those things tend to produce a magnesium deficiency for the simple reason that they don't have much magnesium in it. If that's the bulk of your diet, you're going to have a very high risk for magnesium deficiency. if you want to see what happens with magnesium deficiency, just look at the average troll who leaves the stupid comments under my video. Magnesium is involved in brain function, and one of the reasons why their brain doesn't work could probably stems from lack of magnesium because of their diet of TV dinners, which makes them stupid. Anyway, I had to throw that in. Anyway, another thing is if you eat another problem with diet in relation to magnesium is a high-fat diet. Now, the ketogenic diet, which involves a carbohydrate intake of 20 grams a day or less, what you do on that diet is you eliminate just about all the carbohydrates. You eat a moderate amount of protein. You don't want to eat a high amount of protein, because if you eat a large amount of protein on a ketogenic diet, it'll bring you right out of ketosis, because some of the amino acids are changed into glucose, which knocks you out of ketosis. So you have to have a moderate amount of protein, a little bit less than you would need for building muscle. I'd say about 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight, which is the recommended daily dose. That's not optimal for building muscle, but it's a good amount to consume when you're on a ketogenic diet. But the other aspect of the ketogenic diet that is important to realize is that the ketogenic diet features much higher amounts of fat. You're basically replacing carbohydrate with fat. And what the studies show is a diet that contains more than 30% fat causes a significant excretion of magnesium. Here we go again. If some of these ketogenic diets range from anywhere from 40 all the way up to 70% fat. That kind of fat intake is going to cause magnesium to be excreted from your body. What's going to happen when the magnesium is excreted? As I said earlier, magnesium is very heavily involved in energy production. You're going to feel weak and tired. One of the reasons, and again, to repeat what I said earlier, one of the reasons why you feel weak and tired on ketogenic or low-carb diets is because of loss of these electrolytes or minerals. If you replace them, you will feel much, much better. Now, if you drink carbonated beverages, such as like cola drinks and stuff like that, even if they're sugar-free, they contain this element called phosphoric acid that basically in the gastrointestinal tract, it more or less locks on to the magnesium you consume, and it causes it to be excreted out. So any magnesium you take, you won't absorb if you're also drinking carbonated beverages. Now, as I said, heavy sweating. If you sweat a lot during a hot day, and if you train for 3 hours or more, and I don't know why anybody in bodybuilding in their right mind would be training for 3 hours. That's insane to me. But let's say you are, you're going to be at a high risk of losing a lot of magnesium, and that's going to make you feel very weak, very weak. Alcohol promotes magnesium excretion. If you like to drink a couple of beers, or if you drink the hardest stuff like liquor, if you do this fairly regularly, you're going to have to be observant of your magnesium intake, because alcohol also kicks magnesium out of the body. Now, there's some drugs that also can cause magnesium excretion. These include certain antibiotics like tetracycline causes a magnesium excretion. Women who take birth control pills are at risk of magnesium deficiency. And if you take any kind of cortisol drug to treat, let's say, inflammation, maybe one of those topical, not actually oral corticosteroid. Let's say you have some sort of a muscle injury, you're taking a corticosteroid drug like prednisone. That also can cause a magnesium excretion. Now, if you're under any kind of mental stress, magnesium, every time your body secretes stress hormones like cortisol, epinephrine, and norepinephrine, every time that happens, your body loses magnesium, because magnesium is involved in the release of those stress hormones. So if you're under a lot of stress, you're also going to lose magnesium. You're also going to have an increased requirement for magnesium. Now, what's the best supplement? Let's say you want to take a supplemental form of magnesium. What are the best forms? The best forms include, there's various forms, including magnesium gluconate, magnesium aspartate, and magnesium oxide. Magnesium oxide is the cheapest and poorest absorbed form. You'll find it used in a lot of supplements because it saves money for the seller or the manufacturer of the supplements because it's very cheap, but it's very poorly absorbed. I don't recommend magnesium oxide for anything, for any reason. The best form of magnesium as far as absorption, magnesium citrate is a good form of magnesium, but if you take too much, it will cause that diarrhea effect. My favorite form is called magnesium glycinate. This is what I use personally. I take a dosage of 200 milligrams to maximize magnesium absorption, and I take it between meals. And as I said earlier, you don't want to take more than 300 milligrams at a time. So I think that's all the essential information you need about magnesium. And again, you can call it the energy mineral because magnesium is involved in every energy reaction in your body. And if you're lacking magnesium, if you're doing something to cause the excretion of magnesium, you're going to feel weak and tired and crappy, and your workouts are going to be bad. So watch out for your magnesium. Okay, now, if you want more information on nutrition, exercise science, hormonal therapy, fat loss techniques that really work, anti-aging therapies that you can use today, articles on women's health. Did I say hormonal manipulation? I think I did say that. But all of these topics are covered in in-depth detail in my Applied Metabolics newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com. It's 40 to 50 pages every month, more like an ebook. It's not really a newsletter. It's more like a monthly ebook. I guarantee, I absolutely promise you will learn a lot in every issue. I don't care what your level of education, because I'm including not only the latest research, I'm including my own 55 years of intense study and ongoing experience. It's all incorporated in this newsletter. I don't write the same stuff you'll find on websites and magazines. My stuff is a little bit off the road. It's stuff that you're not going to find from other sources. Everything is explained in plain English. I don't use, if I do have to use any complex terms, I explain them. Anybody with a 6th grade education will easily understand and learn from my newsletter. Of course, this excludes trolls who have nothing better to do than leave stupid comments under videos like this. They have about a 4-second attention span. And I also add, while I'm on the subject of attention spans, I've noticed one or two of the last videos, some people complained about the length of this video. Now, this one's going a little long, and I'm going to stop it very, very, very soon. But I make these videos for people that want to learn, that have a working brain. I don't make these videos for people with 4-second or 10-second attention span like idiotic trolls who've never read a book in their life. So, I'm not going to do 5-minute videos for a very good reason. I'm not trying to impress anybody with my knowledge, but some of these subjects require a little bit more extended explanation. I'm not going to look into a video and say, take 450 milligrams of magnesium. Bye. That's moronic. I'm not going to do that. If you want to see stupid videos, watch the rest of the YouTube videos. And not all of them. Some of them are good. But there's plenty of moronic videos for you trolls with 5-second attention spans to watch. So don't bother leaving the comments about making short videos. If your attention span is that bad, you shouldn't even be watching these videos, quite frankly. And if you want to have the best friend you can ever get, who definitely not trolls, go to a shelter and adopt a dog. They're the greatest animals in the world. They're loyal, they're loving, they're the best. Save a dog today. Go to a shelter, adopt a dog, take care. Sorry about the length of the video, but as I said, I make these videos for intelligent people, and I congratulate you if you watch this video and with full attention. That shows you do have a brain. Take care.